Greetings, listeners, and a warm welcome to another episode of The Tale Collector, celebrating stories and storytelling in all their forms, and the bards and artists who bring them all to life. I'm your host, Erica Adams. If there is one magical being that has adapted and evolved fairly well in the modern world, both in fiction and in real life, it is the witch. Witchcraft, for lack of a better word, is widely practiced in many forms by people all over the world today. Of course, it goes without saying that there are those who shun and disapprove of these practices, claiming them to be nonsense at best and devil-worshipping at worst. As for me, I've always been fascinated by the more godlike powers witches are said to possess, and that have been presented in rather colorful fashion. From the wizard's duel in Disney's The Sword and the Stone, to the evil child hunters in Roald Dahl's The Witches, to any fairy tale and piece of folklore involving flight, potion-making, and transformation. In my older years, however, while I am by no means an expert on the subject, I feel that I've come to better understand, or at least appreciate, the subtleties of a true witch, good or evil, supernatural or otherwise. And if you recall my Limbo episode, you already know my stance on subtlety. And all of this beautifully portrayed by The Good Witch, premiering on the Hallmark Channel on January 19th, 2008, and recommended for viewers 9 and up. Police Chief Jake Russell divides his time between protecting the citizens of the small town of Middleton and trying to stay connected with his family, who are each struggling in their own way to cope with the loss of Jenny, Jake's late wife and the mother of his children. His older son Brandon is bullied at school and buries himself in video games. His younger daughter Lori suffers from frequent night terrors, and his father-in-law George wants to help all of them but just doesn't know how. But one day, while investigating reports of strange activity at Grey House, a local mansion said to be haunted, Jake is surprised by the appearance of Cassandra Nightingale, the secretive raven-haired new owner of Grey House. Soon after, unusual and unusually good things begin to happen, as Cassie utterly fascinates those she meets with her knowledge of herbs and folklore, while offering them much more than simply a hot meal, a kind word, and a listening ear. But there are some residents who take umbrage to Cassie's eccentricity, like the mayor's bossy and meddlesome wife, Mrs. Martha Tinsdale. Whichever side the people take regarding their opinion of Cassie and her spiritual ways, one question ultimately remains. Is Cassie a real witch? In the spirit of stories like Frances Hodgson Burnett's A Little Princess, this is a special tale that strives to inspire its audiences with the belief of true magic without a single use of the supernatural. But this is not achieved only by the presence of the traditional but otherwise ordinary witch-like paraphernalia that the title protagonist surrounds herself with. A spooky house, a black cat, an old-fashioned broom, and the like. And even these elements, thankfully, are never overplayed to the point of corniness. Cassie exudes a sort of down-to-earth motherliness and a childlike love and trust in the world around her that many of us lose as the duties and hardships of real life take over our minds and hearts. One of her greatest charms, pun intended, is that she is sensible without being, well, sensible. For one, she almost never gives commonplace answers to questions or comments that we all typically take for granted. Her words are always refreshingly sage, whether for their kind of truthfulness that we've come to forget, or for the way they exceed expectations and kindle the imagination. More than that, she doesn't just help others in need, she gently gives them direction so that they can help themselves. We tend to focus so much on finding practical reasons for doing or not doing something due to some kind of inner fear. but Cassie seems to know exactly what everyone needs and how to put them at ease enough to utilize it, whether it's to help a child with her bad dreams, an old man yearning for his homeland, a woman whose love life wants a boost, if you know what I mean, and a boy troubled by a nasty bully. Now, of course, it can be argued that, realistically, Cassie's methods are only plausible at best, as they and their outcomes are highly romanticized for storytelling purposes, and could have each gone in myriad directions, if not failed entirely. This is especially true in the sequences involving Brandon facing the boy who bullies him. That said, though, I don't think that knowledge should deter our attention from the fact that this is meant to teach compassion and empathy for others, as they may be quietly struggling with their own personal demons. And then, there is Martha. You know those people who preach what sound like noble intentions on paper, but who are so darn self-righteous about it that it makes you want to do the exact opposite? Martha is one of those people. Annoyingly paranoid and the epitome of the nosy neighbor, Martha disapproves of anything she believes doesn't follow the traditions and moral standards of Middleton, and will do virtually anything to stamp it out as if it were a disease. One of the best technical ways the film accentuates the differences between these two women is through its soundtrack. Whenever Cassie is on screen, viewers hear an elegant theme set in minor, of soothing pipes and gentle harp and violin strings, and adorned with the sound of chimes blowing in a soft wind, all of which create an atmosphere of comfort as well as natural beauty. The sound of Martha's presence, on the other hand, is almost laughable in its banality, a pretentious staccato piece punctuated by deep blasts from the tuba, with a clarinet and flute that swirl in and out of earshot as though they themselves feel awkward in her presence. The second it begins playing, you know she's coming, on the prowl for something to pounce on and nitpick about. And stuck in the center of the debate is Jake. I think, in a way, the character of Jake is meant to represent viewers, a reasonable person with sometimes unreasonable problems, who nonetheless always strives to do what is right for those around him. In the case of Cassie, however, this unfortunately leaves him torn between pacifying the deeply suspicious citizens, including even the mayor, and spending time with Cassie, toward whom he grows increasingly attracted, for her beauty, kindness, and acceptance of others for themselves, no matter what their background, their mistakes, or their past. But in spite of all of that, though serious and strict when the situation calls for it, Jake's mind and heart are open to new people, new things, and most importantly, new ways of thinking, allowing him to realize, and showing the audience in turn, that if something, however unusual, heals and inspires people in the end, why does it need to be questioned or destroyed just for the sake of our own conventional comfort zone? Since its debut, The Good Witch has become so popular on Hallmark that it has spawned numerous sequels, my personal favorite being the third film, The Good Witch's Gift, which features Cassie working her positive magic during the Christmas holidays. There is now also a spin-off TV series simply entitled Good Witch, but I really don't want to spoil any of them here when I'm only talking about the first movie. The Good Witch is less about witch stereotypes and more about ordinary people given new ways to see the extraordinary in the world around them. The true strength of this gorgeous film is its humble yet transcendent moments meant to revive the desire for new adventures and new chances to change one's life. Its primary message being that with enough faith, both in oneself and in others, anyone is capable of working miracles. And who knows, you might be amazed and enchanted by what you find in return. Gather round next time for another tale you may have forgotten or have never heard before. Until then, listeners, may inspiration always find you.